sometimes people share ideas or opinions that I might not agree with. And so instead of just like fighting with you, it's like, hey, let's have a conversation about it, and let's discuss these ideas. And hopefully it can show people that, especially in this climate, that like even though we disagree, we can still like each other and be friends at the end and respect each other.
That is one of the missing pieces in our world that is just, as far as society goes, is just crumbling. Is the left and the right and this polarization, and just the world that we're living in is like, just goes back to that love thy neighbor, man. If I got to love you the same way I love myself, and most people don't even love themselves well enough to be able to love other people real. So I think what we're seeing now is the pain that people are really feeling inside themselves. I'm not lashing out at you. I'm not lashing out at all these other people. What I'd be lashing out at is myself. I'm seeing a reflection of something I don't like in myself. And when you acknowledge that and you realize that whatever it's bringing up for you and it's making you mad and wanting you to right back, that's something that you got to work on. That's something you need to identify, because, man, it's going to affect your business, and 90% of your business problems are your personal problems. So if you're not thinking about that and you're getting emotional or you're trolling or, doing that kind of stuff, it's like, that's a fruitless activity.
Hmm. Yeah, empathy is so huge, like this is what we're talking about, empathy. And I think once it comes to empathy, it's so easy not to be empathetic through like a screen. Like if you're, kind of going back and forth with someone on Twitter.
Yeah.
But if you're in person with them, it's like you're not going to say some of the things that you would say on Twitter, because it's like, there's more of a human connection there because you're with them. And B, it's like if they're bigger than you, they can knock you out. They don't like what you say,
Yeah,
So
well,
like,
you see that they're a person, right? You see that
right.
they actually have feelings, emotions, families, brothers, sisters, wives, and who knows what they have going on in their world. Like everything I post on social media isn't the coolest. I post some insensitive stuff sometimes, but that's just how I felt in that moment. And if somebody's going to get pissed and think that that's who I am because of one thing that I post, that's on them, man. I'm really not worried about it.
100%. And I wonder, with the world becoming more virtual and us, going into the AR and VR world, if there's going to be even less empathy. And I really hope not.
Yeah, I agree. We need more empathy. That's honestly, I mean, I went through a really hard season last year, and through that hard season, I read a book that was all about abuse, and it's a really deeply impactful book. And a lack of empathy, and especially in men, is a cause for a lot of the problems in the world, a lot of the division between men and women, and a lot of the inequalities, and like a lack of empathy on men's side. It's time for us to step up and take accountability for that. And just because we were taught a certain way, or because our parents did it a certain way, or our grandfather did it a certain way, and he was awesome or cool, doesn't mean that's the way we need to do it. So I think that we have an opportunity to evolve our mindset and our thinking, and empathy is a superpower.
Mm-hmm. How do you think people can build empathy?
I think listening instead of just talking. I think actually meeting somebody where they're at and showing up for other people. I think a lot of people are, what's in it for me? What's in it for me? What's in it for me? Just shifting from that taker mindset to a giver mindset, and just being able to just listen and hear. And then, in order to empathize, you have to understand. In order to understand, you have to ask great questions, right? And so just learning how to ask people better questions, and not questions from a place of judgment, but questions from a place of understanding, and being able to be like, hey, I hear what you said, but I don't know if I fully understand where you're coming from. Like, why is it that you feel this way? Or what do you think caused you to believe this? Or why do you think, I believe this? Why do you think that we have different views? And just being able to ask questions to people, and engaging in that dialogue, I think, is really powerful. And then, when you take away the judgment and the ego, empathy all of a sudden starts to show up in weird ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, listening is huge. It kind of reminds me of the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yep.
And one of the chapters is, listening and empathetic listening. There's like different levels of listening, and so a lot of people never get to the empathetic listening. They're just either hearing, and like one word goes in and out goes the other, like you're hearing what they're saying, or you're kind of like active listening, but you still like are thinking your own head, of what you're going to say back. But like empathetic listening is a whole nother level that a lot of people don't get to, which is just just really listening to them and not thinking anything, just feeling what they're feeling. So I think that's huge. I really think that volunteering is such an underrated thing. Like I th- once you volunteer, it's kind of hard to not to feel good afterwards.
Yeah.
Like you just feel good afterwards. And I think that really builds empathy right there. It's like you've helped someone, you feel good about it, you see that you actually improve their lives. And so maybe that becomes a practice, like everybody talks about meditation. It's like, what if volunteering becomes another practice, like a cold shower, like people are into the cold showers right now, jumping in there, or like working out, doing
Yep.
push-ups, pull-ups. It's like, what if you like spend some time to volunteer? Like, what could that do for your life?
100%. You gotta, just like anything else, you gotta put the reps in. You gotta keep practicing. You gotta keep putting the time in and making the investment into empathy to really get a better understanding. It's an area probably of my biggest growth in this last year, is just being able to have empathy for other people in a new way, because it's so easy, especially as a Christian, to judge and to chalk things up as the enemy or the devil, or like making mistakes or sin. And it's like it's just function or dysfunction at the end of the day. And when you listen to people and you listen to actually listen and not just to respond, and you try to meet them and see where they're at, and you take the time to understand where they're hurting and why they're hurting, like we all have something. And
Right.
so that's just being able to, oh, here's another thing. In order for you to have good empathy, you have to show up and be vulnerable to make the other person feel safe enough to be vulnerable, to really get to the place of where they're at,
Hmm.
for them to be able to share where they're truly at. Because otherwise, if you're like, oh, I'm great and I'm this and I'm that and I'm happy and I'm grateful and all these different things, like they're not going to feel like they can share their garbage, share their junk, share their shadow self, share the things that truly matter that you need to hear in order to be able to meet them where they're at.
Yeah, that's definitely huge. Being vulnerable. I also saw a study that said like people that have a hard time with empathy um, don't have means. So like they're focused on like there's like a what's the
Hierarchy
hierarchy
of
of
needs.
needs.
Uh-huh.
So if you're just focused on like trying to figure out when your next meal is, it's kind of hard to like be nice or be empathetic to people. Now that shouldn't be an excuse,
No,
like
it's
even
not.
though you're broke, you can
Yep.
still be empathetic,
That's
but
right.
it's a little bit more difficult when people are like in their back of their minds, they're like struggling to survive,
Yeah. They're in survival mode.
Exactly. And so like what if we can also figure out how to get people to get out of that state of survival mode? Hey, thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you watch the full episode here. And if you're not subscribed yet, make sure you click on the subscribe button. I really appreciate you watching. I'll see you in the next video.